Jen, and I'm with the Ventura County Long-Term Disaster Recovery Group, and we are a collaborative of organizations that have been working with those who were impacted by the 2017 and 2018 wildfires here. We are putting together this series of videos that we're talking with our two Rebuild Navigators, Joe and Greg, and we brought them in to provide guidance and advice to those who are rebuilding after the fires. They're both licensed contractors, but their agreement with us is that they are providing only guidance and advice. They cannot make money off of any of the projects that they're advising on. So we primarily have been working with those who are underinsured or uninsured. So that's a lot of what we're talking about. And also just want to note that all of the specifics when we're talking about regulations or any costs are particular to Ventura County in Southern California. So it may be different where you are, but the same general principles should apply. I'm going to kick it off with the first question. First, just starting off, what's the general top line advice you'd have for somebody who's staring in the face of like rebuilding after a fire?
Well, if you've made the decision to rebuild, find out as much information as you can about your property. Obviously, everything's been destroyed, so you don't have a lot of records, but the county and the city does. So I would spend a lot of time finding out what they know about your property. Any kind of deeds of trust or documents, old permits. I would visit the building department and find out what they knew about. Maybe you had some outside buildings, things that were maybe not permitted. Anything they know, you want to know that they know. Because, by the way, everybody thinks this county and city doesn't know very much about your property. They do. They pretty much know everything you do. I would also say don't rush into a big agreement right away with anybody in terms of an architect or an engineer or a builder or anything, because it's not necessary. The longer you take, sometimes the better. It's just slow down and make your choices carefully, and just don't jump into things. That would be my advice, because we've seen so many people have done that, right? And it's just been so tough on people. And then
costly.
And there's a lot of predatory organizations out there. There's just people that want to make money off of your loss, and they don't. There's not a lot, but sometimes they're not very straightforward or honest, and not giving you the best advice. So I'd steer clear of that. And then maybe another thing is go to your bank and your lender and see if you can get maybe some delay on some of your payments and some love in that area, so that you're not under a super heavy economic burden right after this event.
Great. So I think we can also the standard, make sure you get multiple bids for anything would be another. Yeah. And sometimes that's easier said than done, but I think repeatedly we've seen that just gives you more leverage and a fuller picture. So.
Well, as a builder, it's very typical for us to get 3 bids on every trade. And you'd be amazed. The reason builders do that is because there's a good savings that can be had if you take the time, like Joe was saying, and shop the prices.
So there's always questions about insurance. That's not our area of expertise, but we wanted to kind of cover it briefly about the general question of, will insurance cover the cost of the rebuild? You want to give any thoughts on that?
I think the first thing, you're going to contact your agent and find out what your insurance coverage was. And they will be very helpful in giving you the information of what the policy actually covers. There, 9 times out of 10, if your house burned all the way down, you'll get the full amount that your policy will pay. And one thing to keep in mind is some policies allow for what's called
code
upgrades, and it's usually about 25% extra that the policy can pay. So you might ask your agent about that. There's a really good organization called United Policyholders, and they have just an incredible amount of information and can help you with negotiating with your insurance company. And I think the biggest thing I would suggest is to take your time going through that information and avoid hiring an insurance adjuster, because an insurance adjuster, if your house was damaged, could be helpful in getting more money out of your insurance company, but it costs money for an insurance adjuster, and if your house was burned to the ground, there's no need to pay an insurance adjuster because you're going to get your full policy limit. So that's what I'd say on that.
So, thanks. How does one make the decision whether to rebuild or not to rebuild? What are considerations for that?
Well, whether you want to, it's a tough experience. Most people who build a new home, and choose to do that, it's a tough experience. It's hard on families and marriages and so forth. I can't imagine what it's like. Well, I can now, but when you've lost your home and now you've got to rebuild. So it's a very difficult time. And one of the things is your home is unique. A lot of people, I was thinking about, you get your car wrecked, okay? And your insurance, you take it to the dealer or wherever, and they just fix it and put it back just like it was. That's because cars are not one of a kind. They're all the same, pretty much the same. A Chevy, whatever, year, model, so forth. Houses are not like that. So you're really up against a challenge to reconstruct something one of a kind. And so it's hard. Making that decision is going to be one, what Greg said, is whether you have exceeded the limits of your, we'll talk more about in a little while about what it costs, but if you are underinsured, which most people are, I would say 90% of people are underinsured. They do not have enough insurance to rebuild their home the way they had it before. Then you've got to decide, well, do I want to put that extra money into rebuilding? And then secondly, you got to be able to recognize it's going to take a long time. And do I really want to go through a year of planning and probably another year of building?
Or more.
Or more, yeah.
Or more in some case, if I'm building it, yeah. But, sometimes it's better just to sell a property and move on. And so a lot of decisions, you'll have to just get as much advice as you can on cost.
I think one thing else is after a disaster like this, you're actually traumatized. We've had plenty of clients that have come to us, and it took them a year just to get out of the fog. Right after the Thomas fire, I went over to the relief center at the fairgrounds, and you could only imagine right before Christmas, everything you own is sitting on a little 3 by 6 foot cot, and you've lost everything. And it's a very devastating process right out of the get-go. I mean, and understandably so.
Definitely. So do you guys want to say anything? I know some people have chosen to go with modular homes or manufactured homes as an approach.
As being custom home builders, we're not really big fans of that system necessarily. You can save some. Save some time, but generally you don't save very much money going that direction.
Yeah, unless you just go with the cookie cutter, this is what we're building, this is what we're selling you, and you make no changes to it, and you get the basic package. With those kind of modular homes, once you start adding the upgrades to it, the costs can real quickly and easily get up to the same cost as building a standard stick home. And then your title, which is something very important, says that you have a modular home, not a conventional home. And that affects your value at sales. And with a modular home or a manufactured home, if you want to make changes to it later, and I know this because I own one, it has to get approved by the state architect. It can't be approved over the counter at the local building and safety department, where a conventional home can. So
So all considerations. I think we've covered the idea that you want to get costs to compare. So if you are thinking of understanding what are the costs associated with rebuilding, getting estimates from different sources, do you guys want to talk about how you can do that to just get some comparisons?
Yeah, first of all, you have to decide how big of a house are you going to rebuild. Are you going to build roughly the same one as you had before, or something smaller or something bigger? So that has something to do with at least the size. But most builders, Greg and I will, we don't charge necessarily, but we'll go out and give people rough estimates of what their costs are going to be. That's one option.
a couple others, realtors are really good at giving you an estimate because they have to consider the cost so they can look at the comps and set a price of what that house will sell for. And once people start rebuilding, your neighbors, they have the cost of what it costs them to build. You could talk to your neighbors and get prices that way. And when you talk to your insurance company, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to give you an estimated breakdown of what they're going to pay out. And that gives you a good breakdown of all the categories. There's a lot of categories. There's, the grading, and there's the concrete foundation, and then there's the framing and the roofing and the drywall, and then all the inside components. There's a lot of, when you get a list from your insurance company, it's usually pretty detailed.
Yeah.
And then one thing that a lot of people don't think of is there's companies out there that you can hire. They're just a third-party company that will do a professional estimate of the home that you want to build. And, that's another option. You can hire a third-party estimating company to give you a quote that's totally biased. It's not the contractor, not the architect. It's just a third party.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for watching. We're doing a few of these videos, so you can check the website for more in this series on rebuilding after a fire.